A custodian accomplished what a whole engineering team could not, but the subsequent events left the CEO astounded. Have you ever witnessed someone excelling at something they weren't meant to be skilled in, and yet they were absolutely remarkable at it? On an ordinary Tuesday night in Fort Wayne, Indiana, that's exactly what transpired. The clock was nearing 9 p.m. As Calvin Rhodes swung the heavy metal door ajar, he stepped into the dimly lit storeroom nestled behind the logistics bay at Braylock Industries. He remained clad in his uniform, the dark grey coveralls adorned with maintenance, stitched prominently across the chest. Yet the sleeves were rolled up, and his expression bore that weary yet determined gaze, the kind that radiates from someone engaged in their craft, not out of obligation, but from a genuine desire to create. Silence enveloped the building at this moment. The majority of the team had departed long ago. The only noises echoed from a malfunctioning vending machine by the break room, accompanied by a flickering light that defiantly resisted the darkness. Calvin navigated through aisles lined with neglected components, towering piles of outdated screens, and containers brimming with chaotic cables. This location lacked beauty, yet it served as his sanctuary for contemplation. In the back corner of the room rested a worn sorting unit, 7X, an essential component for the warehouse. It had ceased to function months ago, deemed by the engineers as more hassle than it was worth. Although it wasn't Calvin's responsibility to address the issue, he had been diligently working on it during his evenings for the past few weeks. He was without guides, assistants, or any genuine motivation to invest himself. Yet Calvin had an affinity for things that were flawed, always possessed. In his childhood, he would dismantle old radios, VCRs, and even lawnmowers, driven by the curiosity to see if he could restore them to working order. Many children eventually moved past that stage. Calvin did not. He arranged his instruments with precision, akin to a skilled surgeon preparing for a delicate operation. Socket wrench, voltmeter, soldering pen, compact LED flashlight. Next to him lay a squashed cardboard box, its surface marked, with a hasty pencil drawing of a rough schematic. Shapes, directions, annotations, the sort of matter that only he could truly grasp. He slipped beneath the machine and began his task. "Come on," he whispered, softly tweaking a coil. "I believe there's even more potential within you." The device emitted a gentle grind, followed by silence. He remained unfazed, simply offering a smile. "You have a strong will. I appreciate that." In a different section of the building, Miles Henley, the CEO of Braylock, had just come back from a dinner meeting. He had abandoned his laptop on the desk, a rare occurrence for him, and returned solo to retrieve it ahead of his early flight the following morning. As he strolled by the storeroom, an oddity caught his eye. The door stood ajar, a warm glow seeping through the gap. He took a moment to reflect. He assumed it was either security or a member of the cleaning crew, but then a sound caught his attention. A soft, whirring sound. Not the typical variety. This felt robotic, melodic, inquisitive. He moved in nearer. Stillness, prudent. And that was the moment he laid eyes on it. Through the open doorway, partially obscured by a towering shelving unit, he caught sight of Calvin, positioned beside the sorting machine, concentrated, serene, fingers gliding with assurance. Not speculating, understanding. Suddenly the machine lurched unexpectedly. At one point, 2 times. Suddenly it began to shift, gradually in the beginning. Then more fluid. The arm was raised, separating itself. I have scanned it, arranged it properly, disposed of it in the trash. It happened once more, and once more. Miles blinked, momentarily taken aback. That creature was meant to be gone for good. And this individual, a man dressed in a maintenance uniform, he returned it. He remained still. He simply remained in place. Observing. He felt no anger. He was clear in his understanding. He was taken aback, yet an instinct whispered to him that this was not merely a coincidence. He felt compelled to uncover the depths of this man's abilities. Miles lingered in the doorway longer than he intended. The scene before him carried an unmistakable sense of dissonance. Correct. simply surprising. At first, Calvin overlooked him. He was immersed in it. His gaze darted between the blinking indicator lights and the makeshift control panel he had assembled from a salvaged circuit board and a shattered tablet screen. "Very well," Calvin whispered softly to himself. "The voltage remains constant. Let's observe your approach to real-time sequencing." With a deft motion, he secured a wire into position using the back of a screwdriver, then activated a mechanism. The machine shook once more volume this time. The diminutive robotic arm deftly grasped another package and sorted it with precision. Next, another one, then 3 simultaneously. It was swifter, more intelligent. The silences had vanished. Miles exhaled softly. Calvin raised his gaze. He stood still. They locked eyes. Just a single beat. 2. "Excuse me, Mr. Henley?" Calvin's voice emerged with a deliberate slowness, as if he were questioning the very reality of the moment. Miles ventured a few paces into the room. "I didn't intend to catch you off guard." Calvin rose to his feet, cleaning his hands with a cloth. He straightened his back. "I apologize, sir. I had no intention of violating any protocols. I simply considered—" "Did you manage to resolve that?" Miles gestured toward the unit. "What about that sorting system?" Calvin paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. "Absolutely, sir. I've been putting in the effort for some time now. Simply—" "After hours." Miles narrowed his eyes, though it wasn't out of anger. "Is it functioning as intended?" Calvin gave a slight nod. "Primarily. There are still a few issues with the scan timing, but the motor is in good condition. I rewired the main board and circumvented the damaged controller. Retrieved a few items from the return shelf. I trust that." "This is acceptable." Miles approached, examining the machine intently. "Engineering declared it beyond repair," he murmured softly. "It seems they preferred not to engage with it." Quietude. "Are you an engineer, Rhodes?" Calvin gave a slight shake of his head. "Absolutely not, sir, not in writing." Miles cast a glance in his direction, truly examined. The roughened hands, the weathered boots, the meticulous arrangement of every detail. "Where did you acquire this skill?" Calvin looked down at the floor as if the solution could be concealed within the cracks. "I received a scholarship to Purdue Electrical Engineering. After 3 years, my father fell ill. Invoices accumulated. I departed from school and seized any job opportunities that came my way." "Did you really not return?" "I've contemplated it." Life became quite hectic. Inquiries ceased. Eventually, I ceased to share. Miles remained silent. He gazed intently at the machine, observing its intricate movements. Tap, examine, organize. Let it go. It outpaced the latest model the company had, acquired just last month. He glanced over his shoulder at Calvin. "It's interesting to think about how many individuals in this company might have overlooked this thing countless times without ever engaging with it." Calvin gave a nonchalant shrug. "I prefer not to discard items that still have potential and purpose." Miles grinned at that. "Only a small amount. Would it be all right if I shared this with the engineering team tomorrow?" Calvin's eyes grew wide with surprise. Absolutely. Why not? I'm uncertain about their thoughts." "We'll discover the answer," Miles remarked, already reaching for his phone. "Will you be here at 8 a.m.? I typically start my shift at 7. "Excellent. I'll arrange for someone to take over your route. Let's gather." In the conference room on the 5th floor at the start of the day, Calvin appeared to be on the verge of asking further questions, yet the right words eluded him. Miles cast a final look at the machine before turning to depart. He lingered at the threshold. "Rhodes, excuse me, sir, great job." Yet as the door shut behind him, Calvin remained expressionless. He remained motionless, gazing at the machine, contemplating the implications of his recent actions. Calvin tossed and turned throughout the night, unable to find rest. He reclined on his tattered mattress in his modest one-bedroom apartment off Jefferson Boulevard, gazing at the ceiling, replaying every nuance of the conversation with Miles. Thoughts surged through him, revisiting the CEO's expression, the inflection in his voice, the way he regarded that machine, not with astonishment, but as if he had encountered something significant. Calvin found himself uncertain if that was a favorable outcome or not. At dawn's first light, he rose early. He meticulously ironed his uniform twice, polished his boots to a shine, and even trimmed his beard with unsteady hands. At 6:55 a.m., he sat patiently in his truck, parked outside the main entrance of Braylock. The familiar group trickled in, warehouse personnel clutching coffee cups, office employees absorbed in their screens, and mid-level managers striding, briskly to project an air of significance. He sat there unnoticed as he did every other day, yet today stood apart from all the others. At 8:01, Calvin positioned himself at the glass doors of the fifth-floor conference room. He appeared out of sync, clad in his coveralls, amidst a crowd dressed in polos and slacks, with some already settled in, perusing their notes. As Miles entered, a hush fell over the room. He bypassed the formalities of introductions. Calvin Rhodes introduced himself. He isn't part of the engineering team. He is involved in maintenance, yet last night he managed to revive a piece of equipment that this department had deemed beyond repair 3 months prior. The engineers shared knowing looks. Miles cast a glance at Calvin. "Share the details of your actions." Calvin cleared his throat, preparing to speak. Well, the 7X sorter experienced a blown capacitor, a damaged board, and the main scan sensor was out of alignment. The diagnostic software had become obsolete, prompting me to reconstruct a fundamental interface utilizing some vintage tablets, reconfigure the primary harness, and adjust the control flow. He surveyed his surroundings. Silence enveloped the room. Audiences were captivated. However, he remained disbelieved by all. An engineer raised their voice. "Did you utilize the shelf parts that were returned?" "Absolutely, sir. By oneself?" Calvin gave a slight nod. "Following the conclusion of my shift." "Only a small amount gradually." Another man leaned in closer. "That unit is beyond repair. It's outdated. What's the point in repairing it?" Calvin gave a slight shrug. "Outdated doesn't equate to worthless. It simply indicates that there hasn't been enough effort put forth thus far." That lingered in the atmosphere. Miles pointed toward the television screen situated at the far end of the room. "This morning, I had someone capture it on film here." He pressed play. Once more, the room fell into silence. On screen, the device operated without a hitch, analyzing, arranging, finishing assignments, quicker than the model that succeeded it. Individuals adjusted their posture. An engineer took notes indeed. As the video concluded, Miles pivoted to face the room once more. "I'd like each of you to dedicate the next hour to conversing with Mr. Rhodes. Pose inquiries. Comprehend his actions. I would appreciate a suggestion. The lessons we can draw from this, and how to implement it throughout the space." He cast a glance at Calvin. "Are you okay with that?" Calvin's voice carried a calm assurance, soft yet unwavering. "Absolutely, sir." For the first time since entering, he allowed a smile to break across his face. Only a small amount, yet not all those present in that room were prepared to applaud a man dressed in coveralls, and one of them was already scheming to demonstrate that Calvin was out of place. The ensuing hour was a tempest of activity. Individuals, who had previously exchanged nothing beyond a simple greeting with Calvin, now encircled him, armed with notepads and an array of inquiries. A few expressed their curiosity. Some remained doubtful. Some simply aimed to criticize his actions. A brief, incisive fellow named Trevor Bain, one of the senior systems engineers, made his voice heard above the rest. "Hold on a second. Are you seriously saying you redirected a triple-channel relay using what? Leftover components from the recycling bin?" Calvin acknowledged with a serene nod. "And a small piece of copper wire I removed from an old floor fan." Trevor wore a knowing smirk, as if he had just uncovered a deceit. "That isn't even covered in the manual." "I understand. I chose not to refer to the manual for that reason." A few of the junior engineers shared a light laugh. However, Trevor remained serious. "So, where did you acquire this knowledge?" Calvin remained unblinking. "Yesterday I mentioned to Mr. Henley that I pursued electrical engineering at Purdue. I've reached my junior year." Trevor crossed his arms. However, there is no degree, no qualifications, no certifications available. Absolutely not. Do you really believe you have something to impart to us? That one really hurt. Calvin inhaled. Deeply, his breath measured and composed. He stated that he wasn't here to impart knowledge to anyone. I just came across something that was broken and took the initiative to repair it. That concludes everything. Miles, having maintained his silence for several moments, finally rose to his feet. Trevor, are you suggesting we overlook someone's abilities simply because they didn't follow the conventional route? Trevor adjusted his position in the chair. We cannot develop an engineering strategy centered on an individual lacking formal training. Miles arched an eyebrow. That individual managed to resolve the system issue that none of you were able to tackle. During his leisure moments, without a team, there are no instruments available, and without any funding. Miles interrupted just as Trevor was about to respond. This transcends mere titles now. It's all about the outcomes. Silence enveloped the room. Once more. Suddenly, a gentle voice emerged from the shadows, easing the strain in the air. Elise Tran, a young software engineer, remarked that he had reconfigured the signal pathways to operate more efficiently than the factory specifications. Verified it personally. It's more than just fixed, it has improved. Calvin cast a quick look her way, taken aback. She offered him a subtle nod. I have spent 2 years in this place. Your actions are truly unparalleled. I've never witnessed anything like it before. Miles beamed with joy. That's exactly the response I was hoping for. He glanced over his shoulder at Calvin. What are your thoughts on joining our team upstairs for a few weeks? Merely a test phase, explore various systems. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Observe the unfolding journey. Calvin paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. He found himself unaccustomed to this level of attention. I would still be in a state of upkeep. No, Miles replied. I would assign you to a unique task right beneath me. Calvin surveyed the surroundings of the room. Trevor's expression was one of pure sourness, as if he'd just bitten into a lemon. Elise offered him a subtle thumbs up. Are you really considering giving me a chance? I'm giving us a chance, Miles said. Your presence is essential to us. Individuals who recognize possibilities in aspects that others tend to disregard. Calvin ultimately acquiesced. Very well. Let's discover what unfolds. As he stepped out of that room, the badge still proclaiming maintenance, he realized this was more than merely a promotion. It was an examination. Not everyone was eager to witness his departure. The next Monday, Calvin arrived on the 5th floor, this time without the coveralls. He donned a sharp button-down shirt, khakis and dress, shoes that were a half-size too snug, borrowed for the occasion. Yet he remained silent. He held a simple black notebook and a pen that lacked a cap, without a laptop, no elaborate equipment, only him. The engineering team didn't extend a warm welcome. A few offered a courteous nod, several averted their gaze. Trevor remained completely silent. Miles provided Calvin with an unoccupied desk and a warm welcome to join the team meetings. Leadership was not anticipated from him. Simply watch, absorb knowledge, and add value when possible. By Wednesday, Elise began seeking his thoughts. By Friday, he found himself illustrating wiring diagrams on the whiteboard in the break room. His handwriting started to catch people's attention. Concise, swift, nearly creative. One afternoon, as Guy, he delved into the complexities of a faulty conveyor alignment script. Calvin meticulously revised a segment of code that had been plagued by persistent errors for weeks. He kept it to himself. I just affixed a note to the monitor. Give this version a go. Could operate more smoothly. Indeed it did, and more swiftly. The transformation started at that moment. The murmurs in the office shifted from discussing the maintenance worker to speculating about this new individual. Yet Trevor had more to say. He began dissecting Calvin's notes in the course of the meetings, nuanced jabs, observations masked as constructive criticism. Are you certain that this is the most effective method to tackle a voltage drop? Fascinating concept. However, it may not be feasible. Rhodes, could you please refresh our memory on which textbook that method originated from? Calvin remained silent, never retaliating. He simply absorbed the words. adapted as necessary, and continued to be present. On a Thursday morning, Miles convened a comprehensive department meeting. It was widely believed that the focus was on the new scanner rollout. It certainly was not. Instead, he presented a side-by-side comparison. 2 classification systems, 1 norm, a rebuild by Calvin. The audience absorbed the footage in quiet contemplation. Calvin's version organized almost twice the amount, reduced mistakes, minimized interruptions. Then Miles faced the group. Just 3 months back, this machine was deemed worthless, nothing more than scrap. This has become our latest internal standard. He advanced to the next slide. Enhancement of internal systems for improved efficiency. Lead C roads. Inhalations of surprise. A smattering of applause. And then there was silence. Trevor lifted his hand. With all due respect, Miles, do you feel like this is progressing a bit quickly? It remains uncertain what his long-term potential truly is. Miles acted without a moment's pause. I certainly do. I have witnessed it. He surveyed the room with a keen eye. Over the course of the last few weeks, I've come to a realization. At times, genius isn't wrapped in formal attire. It doesn't always come with a certificate of achievement. Should we pause to seek out credentials before lending an ear, we risk overlooking those who have dedicated years to self-education in the shadows of fluorescent lights and amidst the hum of mop buckets. Calvin became the center of attention. Truly, examined, Miles pressed on. If there's anyone here with a superior system prepared for implementation, please share your thoughts. Stillness. Trevor remained still. Then Elise elevated her tone. He truly deserves that lead position. That's it. There were soft nods of concurrence among the crowd. Calvin found himself in an uncomfortable silence, grappling with the right words to express himself. Miles glanced over at him. Are you all set with the assignment? Calvin took a moment to clear his throat. Absolutely, sir. I have a few concepts in mind already. Trevor finally uttered a few words, though his voice was softer this time. Looks like I'll be updating you from now on, right? Calvin offered a faint smile. No. We're all creating the same thing. As I see it, we're in this together. Yet, beneath the surface, Calvin understood that this was not a matter of labels or retribution. It was about demonstrating the potential of an individual when the world ceases to undervalue their abilities. 2 weeks into the new position, Calvin's existence appeared transformed. He continued to reside in the same apartment, still navigated the roads in the same weathered Ford Ranger with the squeaky belt, and still took it upon himself to repair the plumbing whenever the sink leaked. Yet a change had occurred. The way individuals gazed upon him, the manner in which they addressed him, the manner in which they absorbed every word. One morning he strolled into the office and discovered a new badge awaiting him on his desk. Calvin Rhodes. Systems Development, Lead Technology. He never requested it. I was caught off guard. He gazed at it for an extended moment before silently fastening it to his shirt. He dedicated his days to sketching new designs, suggesting modifications to hardware, and guiding interns on the art of dismantling and reimagining obsolete technology. His office remained even more chaotic than the others. Longtime enthusiasts, broken controllers, surplus cables, and yet in some inexplicable way, it seemed to pulse as the very heart of the entire floor. He remained humble, didn't brag, yet the news had circulated. Throughout the various departments, in the break rooms and even among the janitorial staff, he received a familiar nod of acknowledgement as they crossed paths. Make us proud, Cal, one of the nighttime security guards remarked one evening. However, the most significant transformation, he began to have faith in his own abilities. However, not all aspects were seamless. The weight of the situation had intensified. Deadlines loomed ahead, anticipations. Executives from the corporate office began making appearances, probing with inquiries, and attending meetings with rigid expressions and formal attire. A man from the Cincinnati division, Derek Flanagan, took Miles aside following a demonstration. Are you seriously saying that someone who used to clean floors is now in charge of your most critical upgrade rollout? Miles remained unfazed. No, I assure you that our most skilled team member is at the helm of this project. Derek let out a derisive laugh. What occurs when it disintegrates? Next we address the issue, as he has done from the very first moment. We crossed paths. In the confines of his workspace, Calvin sensed the weight of unseen gazes upon him, individuals reviewing his illustrations, verifying his specifications, anticipating, and it began to weigh on him. One evening, well past the hour when others had departed, he remained at his desk, shoulders drawn in, gazing intently at the redesign that had consumed his thoughts for days. Everything felt out of sync. He gently rubbed his eyes. Once more he sensed a disconnection from his surroundings. The familiar voice in his mind began to murmur softly, "This is not the place for you." He was on the verge of giving up when a gentle knock echoed from the door. It was Elise. "Are you okay?" she inquired. He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Indeed, feeling quite fatigued. She entered the room, drew a chair closer, and settled down opposite him. "May I share something with you?" she remarked. "Absolutely. Remember that initial week when you became part of our team? Each night I returned home with the nagging thought that I fell short of expectations." He gazed at her, taken aback. "I truly mean it," she pressed on. "You observed details that escaped our notice. I accomplished feats I never imagined I could achieve. You always ensured that none of us felt diminished because of it." Calvin cast his gaze downward. "At times, I find myself questioning whether I'm deceiving those around me or merely deceiving my own self." "You're not," she stated. "This is your place. You have always had a place in this world. We were fortunate to have finally recognized it." He offered a faint smile. He redirected his focus to the schematic. A realization dawned. "Hold on a moment." Elise leaned closer as he picked up a pencil and began to draw a fresh line on the diagram. His hand glided swiftly with growing assurance. "That's all there is," he remarked. "That's the crucial piece." She smiled. "I mentioned it to you." Yet as the resolution began to take shape, neither of them realized the extent to which this moment would send waves far and wide. Not solely through the organization, but through every unnoticed individual silently supporting the world from the shadows. 1 month later, the new system was officially launched, not only in Fort Wayne, but throughout all 5 Braylock distribution centers. Calvin's design exceeded all expectations. The company's standard operating procedures were reset. Productivity soared. Downtime has decreased. Then, out of nowhere, the name Calvin Rhodes appeared in internal memos, logistics reports, and most surprisingly to him, a corporate newsletter. He absorbed that line 5 times before it truly resonated. Calvin Rhodes, our lead technician, took the helm in crafting the innovative design of our new adaptive sort system, which is entirely constructed from recycled technology and creative ingenuity. There shall be no titles preceding his name, no qualifications following it, only the truth. He chose not to mark the occasion with an elaborate speech or a gathering. He had no interest in any of that. Instead, after the rollout, Calvin strolled back to the old storeroom where it all began, savoring the memories in the stillness. The lights danced just like they always did. The vending machine continued to emit that peculiar noise as it operated. However, a fresh nameplate now adorned the sorting unit, refurbished and revitalized by C. Rhodes, February 2025. He remained in place, simply observing. At that moment, Miles appeared just behind him. Miles mentioned that they wanted to relocate. This to the training center. I instructed them to leave it here. Not everything requires refinement to hold significance. Calvin gave a slight nod. I was caught off guard by all of this, you know. I never anticipated learning something profound from a man repairing equipment late into the night. Yet here we find ourselves. They lingered in silence, the stillness enveloping them. You transformed the mindset of this place, Miles remarked. Concerning individuals, concerning beliefs regarding possibilities, Calvin found himself at a loss for words in response to that. He expressed a desire to see something come to fruition. And you did, Miles responded. However, there's something beyond that. You reminded us that skill doesn't always make a grand entrance in formal attire. Miles began to walk away, then hesitated. Have you ever considered completing your degree? Calvin gazed at him with a warm smile. I don't require a document to affirm my abilities. Miles returned the smile. No, but if you ever desire it, we will cover the cost. They clasped hands firmly. Not from obligation, but from a place of shared regard. As the CEO departed, Calvin lingered for a moment longer. In that cramped little space filled with discarded pieces, he had created something beyond just a machine. He had cultivated conviction within himself. Among others similar to him, there's a notion that often the most underestimated individuals possess the answers that the world is yearning for. If you're observing this and feeling like you don't fit the mold or hail from the expected background, keep this in mind, Calvin. Your worth isn't defined by your beginnings. It reflects your actions in the absence of an audience. Continue to create, continue to be present, continue to demonstrate your worth until they cease questioning your place, and begin to ponder how they ever managed without you. Because there's always an audience observing, ensure it has significance.